hand straight over to Lizzie to...
So good morning. It's really great to join you all. Some of the early birds, we weren't sure how many we'd be speaking to, so it's so good to see so many of you here. I'm Lizzie Glithero-West. I'm Chief Executive of the Heritage Alliance. We're the umbrella body for all heritage organisations, all shapes and sizes. We offer support for our members. We do a lot of advocacy and connecting, and we've got a presence here today, so do come and see us separately as well. And this is...
Neil, I'm Policy and Advocacy Manager at the Heritage Alliance.
Could you hear Neil okay? Lovely, okay. So it's a really appropriate moment, I think, to be talking about our new report, Heritage Creates, which you can see on the screen as well, at an event which combines so well creativity, culture and heritage, as we've already heard, a focus on partnerships as they play out in museums, sites and through practice. The creative industries and the creative economy seem to currently be the lens through which many politicians, and particularly the current government, view culture and heritage. Neither heritage nor tourism, however, were mentioned in the government's industrial strategy consultation, but the creative industries were. And so as a heritage sector, we represent 2% GVA, which is huge. And we contribute significantly to growth, so it's a really opportune moment to be reminding decision makers of the important connection between heritage as the muse, the backdrop, and the arena of creative activity. So how does heritage support creativity? It could be said that we're the original creative industry in many ways. And that's the exam question that we'll be answering today. And it's also the question that underpinned our latest report, Heritage Creates, which provides the basis for this presentation. And it does this in a number of ways. Firstly, heritage creates the backdrop for culture and creativity as a host for the performing arts and an inspiration for our cultural exports. For example, the huge open-air courtyard of the Peace Hall in Halifax, which hosts world-class music events, whilst more than 200 film and TV productions have taken place at our member, the Old Royal Naval College in Greenwich, reputed to be the most filmed location in Europe. Heritage also creates inspiration for new creative work. The York Minster Centre of Excellence for Heritage Craft Skills is keeping traditional skills alive and investing in our next generation of craftspeople, while Chawton House's embroidery exhibition, inspired by literature and nature, is an example of heritage inspiring new design and sustaining skills, with the Royal School of Needlework itself actually hosted by Hampton Court Palace. But heritage creates many more benefits too, from homes and enterprises to community cohesion. Whilst heritage organisations often act as partners for creators and innovators, these aspects and more are those which we'll be exploring together this morning. So back in 2019, we released an insight report called Inspiring Creativity, and it was one of the first of its kind, looking at the connections between heritage and the creative industries at that point. And it explored that relationship and came up with a number of recommendations alongside lots of case studies. And we used it a lot with our discussions with decision makers. However, since then, as we know, the whole world has really significantly changed, and particularly in a few ways. So the triple impact of the pandemic, the ongoing cost of living crisis, and our changing relationship with the European Union, and actually more globally as well, has really challenged organisations and individuals across the UK. And the arts and cultural sectors has certainly not been immune. But challenging times have been met with resilience and, crucially, with a lot of creativity and innovation. Also, the evidence base for heritage's contribution to these industries has grown since too. For instance, Historic England has produced a lot of statistics in this space. Cultural heritage, they have found, exerts a direct and positive influence on economic development. On average, a marginal increase in the cultural heritage is associated with a real and now quantifiable GDP growth. And areas of higher cultural heritage are also those that produce a larger number of trademarks, a measure of economic creativity. Last year also, we also saw a change of government, and with it, a new vision for our sectors, as I've already touched on, notably a forthcoming industrial strategy, probably what might be quite a hard comprehensive spending review round, but creative industries and the creative economy is a really essential component in future thinking about growth. And finally, the major cultural funding commitments that have been announced recently around the 60th anniversary of Jenny Lee's first culture white paper recognised that heritage is a key part of the lives of communities and individuals, and we need to work to join the dots for decision makers in this space and help them to see the evidence of the connection between the different parts of our sectors and their implications for public policy goods. And so with that backdrop all in mind, it's more important now than ever, I think, that we demonstrate the potential of heritage and the creative industries to bring communities together, to do social good, to improve well-being and shape a shared cultural legacy that we can all be proud of. And that's why we decided to update our 2019 report and bring it up to speed with lots of new case studies, and also to include some of the new statistics that are out there. Our report split into 5 thematic chapters: heritage as a host, heritage as a muse, heritage as a creative practice, innovative partnerships, and inclusive partnerships, each of which we'll explore briefly in turn now.
Thanks, Izzy. So the image you can see here is of Alice Billing House. It's a former firefighter's home and hosepipe drying tower, which was previously closed to the public, but it's now been restored and provides affordable artist studios for people living in Newham. I think it's a good illustration of how heritage acts as a host, with heritage sites hosting an incredible array of cultural and creative activity, from brutalist galleries and Art Deco cinemas to concerts hosted in historic parks and gardens. In 2022 alone, 26,000 cultural events were hosted by our member Historic Houses. And they're more than a backdrop. The atmosphere these unique and characterful places provide is key to enticing and exciting audiences. What's more, entrepreneurs and investors are drawn to our historic environments. Research shows that creative industries are more likely to operate out of listed buildings than non-listed buildings, and businesses based in old buildings generate a higher than average GVA, a phenomenon known as the heritage premium. So what can this look like in practice? One case study that illustrates the heritage as a host concept well was provided to us by the Association of English Cathedrals, as you can see on the slide. Since 2019, growing numbers of cathedrals up and down the country have played host to innovative art installations which engage new audiences by transforming their spaces with immersive light and sound. These installations are the work of Lux Morales, an artistic collaboration between the sculptor Peter Walker and composer David Harper, pioneering the introduction of light and sound art within sacred spaces. As of this year, 34 English cathedrals have hosted such installations, with many of the exhibitions exploring the rich heritage of the site and inviting visitors to physically immerse themselves in the story. A program of educational activities and community events often run alongside the installations, such as early years storytelling, silent discos, and accessible quiet time viewings for neurodivergent audiences. Their success has supported the financial resilience of the cathedrals and their upkeep, whilst bringing new meaning and interpretation to these ancient places.
So this image is a student taking inspiration from the grounds of Highgrove Gardens as part of a programme run by the King's Foundation. It reminds us that heritage is also a muse. For instance, some of the most successful British cultural and creative outputs of recent years have taken their inspiration from history and heritage. Indeed, the UK continues to be an internationally popular destination for period and fantasy films in particular, capitalising on our world-famous heritage destinations. For example, in 2022, Historic Houses hosted over 4,100 days of filming across the country, and that's only one of our members. Screen tourism continues to exert a powerful influence on international travel trends, with set jetters drawn to the UK by the unique heritage assets that inspire their favourite media. In the world of fashion and design, to take one example, Britain is a leader on the world stage thanks to our cultural legacy of these industries. From British invasion to Cool Britannia, the unique blend of tradition and innovation which characterise British style, from high-end heritage brands like Burberry and Harris Tweed to the fearless innovation of London Fashion Week, has made British design internationally recognisable. And to take another great example, the Old Royal Naval College I mentioned earlier is one of the UK's most sought-after film locations. Designed by Sir Christopher Wren, the site's iconic Baroque buildings, its painted hall, famed domes, colonnades, and courtyards lend credibility and authenticity to productions that can't always be replicated in studios. It's thanks to the Old Royal Naval College that it's hosted over 200 film and television productions over the last 100 years, so from the beginning, I suppose, of film production, ranging from recently the Netflix The Crown, to superhero blockbusters like Marvel Studios' Thor 2 recently. And through these partnerships with film and television, new and unexpected visitor experiences have been created. For instance, the college saw a really noticeable increase in numbers for their blockbuster film and TV guided tours that they run, following the release of Bridgerton Season 3, filmed at the site. This is also Les Miserables, also on the screen, which was filmed at the site. What's more, the revenue generated from these creative projects goes directly towards conservation efforts, ensuring that heritage destinations continue to be preserved for future generations.
So this photo here was taken during the restoration of a Grade 2 star listed Tudor building in West Bromwich, and is testament to the importance of heritage craft skills, which are essential not only for preserving individual buildings, but also for safeguarding Britain's architectural legacy. It's important to remember that heritage is a creative practice. Indeed, many traditional crafts and practices can be understood as both expressions of intangible cultural heritage and as forms of creative practice. Incredibly, there are thought to be over 250 recognised heritage crafts in the UK, whilst in 2020 there were 28 million craft buyers in the country. From the potteries of Stoke to the Morris dancers of Oxfordshire, our crafts, folk practices and traditions are kept alive by continuing interest in Britain's cultural heritage. Last year, the UK government ratified the 2003 Convention for the Safeguarding of Intangible Cultural Heritage, and soon communities across the UK will be able to nominate their favourite traditions to be included within official inventories of our living heritage. Intangible cultural heritage is afforded protection owing to its role in shaping unique local and national cultural identity. But many forms are practiced as commercial enterprises, representing an important contribution to our creative economy. Heritage crafts are also vitally important to many of the most profitable creative industry subsectors, such as architecture. And this is a really good example. This is York Minster. York Minster's Centre of Excellence for Heritage Craft Skills and Estate Management provides a really good case in point. The Centre of Excellence, a first-of-its-kind project and set against a backdrop of declining craft skills in the wider industry, will establish the York Minster precinct as a world-class campus facility for research, education and training in ancient craft skills, such as stonemasonry, as well as being an example of best practice in managing complex heritage estates. Utilising world-class cutting-edge technology, it's now open and beginning to support young people in the early stages of their careers, and provides dedicated residential facilities for York Minster's first-year apprentices. It costs more than £33,000 a day to maintain the Minster and its 7-hectare precinct, and it takes a multidisciplinary team of skilled heritage craftspeople and experts to care for its ongoing repair, restoration and conservation, including stonemasons, joiners, painters, glaziers and gardeners. What's also exciting is that the Centre will be able to take in the work in the future to support the wider heritage sector and ecosystems through new time-saving technology, as well as its pipeline of craftspeople.
Thank you. The background here shows visitors at the launch of Nature's Confetti, an immersive experience of blossoms in London, from the National Trust as part of a partnership between the National Trust and Outernet London, a global media and entertainment company. I don't know if anyone saw that in practice, yeah. Innovative partnerships are really important. Modern challenges require creative solutions, from confronting the climate crisis to tackling health inequalities and encouraging regional growth. Growth is really very much the show on the road at the moment. And to this end, heritage contexts have been an important testbed for emerging technologies, including partnerships between cultural institutions and create tech companies. Immersive experiences, such as the use of mixed, virtual or augmented realities, lie at the cutting edge of art and technology. and they offer opportunities to attract new audiences and boost revenue. Meanwhile, the digitisation of heritage materials has often enhanced their accessibility to a wider range of audiences. Partnerships between heritage organisations and health practitioners have also been used really well to deliver effective community care interventions through social prescribing and other programmes. Creative and green social prescribing initiatives support the government's ambition for universal personalised care, whilst offering really good value for money. To give one statistic, nearly 200 million is saved by the NHS through reductions in doctor visits and also psychotherapy appointments as a result of heritage site visits. An example here to illustrate the point, the Chronicles of Greyfriars was a 2-year environmental heritage and creative health project based on the Suffolk coast. It ran in partnership with the Greyfriars Trust and Dunwich Museum. It worked across traditional boundaries to offer tailor-made days for child carers, adults with serious mental illness and adults in recovery from mental health issues, as well as providing everyday wellbeing opportunities for the wider local community. The project team, led by our member art branches, was drawn from a broad range of professions and included an environmental heritage specialist, geologists, archaeologists, environmental educators, a former nurse, a resident doctor, and 10 different artists. The rich heritage of the 3 participating sites, Greyfriars Priory, Leper Chapel, and Dunwich Museum, formed the basis for creative inspiration, which resulted in poetry, textiles, and filming. Participants were encouraged to look really holistically at the sites and at the macro level at the environmental heritage of the site, which included lichen, stone, soil, plants, and insect life. And there were many diverse creative outputs from the project, including interpretation booklets. I think there were 3 that were produced, 2 large tapestries made by over 300 participants, poetry and drawings. So a great legacy.
So this is a really nice image of young creative producers at Wentworth Woodhouse. It's a stately home in Rotherham. They were tasked with creating an original piece of film. For most of them, it was the first time they set foot inside the building. And that leads us to inclusive partnerships. Since the publication of the first Inspiring Creativity report, there's rightly been a growing impetus on institutions across the heritage and cultural sectors to address the legacy of complex and contested histories. Heritage, cultural and creative sectors, meanwhile, continue to grapple with the diversity of their workforce, which are marked by profound divides in terms of gender, race and ethnicity, social class and disability. Research suggests that the lack of diversity in the cultural and creative industries is rooted in unequal access to arts and cultural education. For instance, in film, TV, video, radio, and photography, under 10% of people are from working class backgrounds. Under 10%. Further, the Cultural Learning Alliance reports that creative and cultural education has been systemically deprioritised within the state education system, resulting in a decline in in-school opportunities and in the quality of the facilities available. So how is the sector addressing this? A great example in this space was a partnership between English Heritage and Aardman Academy, which looked to inspire young people to use stop-motion animation to bring their interpretations of the stories of historic sites to life. For example, in summer 2023, Aardman animators joined English Heritage in welcoming young people from Bristol's Creative Youth Network to the city's Temple Church, inspiring them to produce stop-motion animations about what they found interesting about the history of this late medieval church. For example, young people's animations included telling the story of how the church was bombed during the Second World War. A year later, English Heritage expanded its partnership with Aardman Academy to offer free workshops with its professional animators for young people at 4 English Heritage sites. Using freely available kit, materials, and apps, the animators helped young people develop skills in paper animation and creative storytelling, bringing the stories of Charles Darwin's Down House and many others to life. Many of the youth organisations English Heritage collaborate with work with young people who may not otherwise have the chance to engage with heritage, or who might not feel it's relevant to their lives. and all the young people taking part in the initial project reported their confidence had increased and that they'd learnt new skills. So looking ahead, the economic value of heritage to the creative industries has been well established and our evidence base is growing. New research from Historic England, for example, has shown that heritage is directly linked to higher productivity and growth in new creative enterprises. And the government has recognised this too. £270 million of cultural infrastructure funding was announced recently to invest in repairing the foundations of our creative economy, our heritage. Heritage is in every constituency, in every community. It's a resource everyone can benefit from. A third of our historic industrial buildings are vacant. They could be brought back to life with new creative activity and enterprise, reinvigorating our towns and cities and providing opportunity for everyone to access heritage on their doorstep. Lastly, heritage creates, but it's people who create heritage. So supporting and sustaining our volunteers, our skills, and the next generation is absolutely key to keeping the good work going.
Finally, to finish on, our refreshed Heritage Manifesto, we produce one of these ahead of any election. It's freely available for people to access. This was our 2024 edition. Lays out several key priorities that we're using in our advocacy and that we're urging the government to implement. We use it with all decision makers because, of course, for many of us in this room, what we're saying today, we already know, we know it instinctively, but joining those dots and actually thinking about what are the practical solutions that are needed, either in funding or in regulations or actually just in decision makers understanding the value that we can add to their public policy problems is really important, and it's an ongoing conversation that we need to have. So ahead of the spending review, we've already made the important case for investment, including the need to support heritage sector bodies through sustained funding, not just big chunks of funding that come at particular periods as well, although that is obviously welcome. But some of these manifesto acts directly relate to the supporting heritage and creativity. So we're not going to cover them all today, but we've picked a couple that are particularly relevant. So firstly, putting heritage at the heart of regeneration. As I mentioned, growth is the language of the day. It's the conversation that governments are having and their main priority. And as Neil has mentioned, heritage is literally everywhere. It is an asset for every community. And so we want to see heritage front and centre of place-based investment programmes and thought of as integral to new towns and to planning and to placemaking. So that can be part of culture-led regeneration and actually thinking about culture when you're planning places rather than culture as an afterthought, and supporting regional growth, pride in place, stronger communities. There's some brilliant statistics around housing as well. The government have set themselves a target for 1.5 million houses. We know that 670 homes could be created in existing vacant buildings. That's Historic England research. So we need to get really creative about how we use these places and not just start from scratch. And I think that's a really significant point for us at the moment, that heritage is not a blocker, it's an enabler. Sometimes it can be seen as a sector that says, stop, we want to preserve, but actually we want to enable and we want to use these things to create better places and quality homes and thriving communities. So sustained capital support is really important to avoid those peaks and troughs, while culture-led regeneration can deliver characterful, meaningful places for local communities through investment in high streets, in action zones, and through some of these programmes for new towns, whatever the future of levelling up is going to be as well. And we need to embed the heritage environment in climate action through a focus on reuse. The existing building is the greenest building. Skills growth and investment in training is also really important. We've had some great examples today to ensure the economic and the environmental benefits of the heritage industry can be properly harnessed. We need a national retrofit strategy that could double the green skills in our workforce, which we actually require to meet the challenges of the retrofit needs that our country has. We have the oldest building stock in Europe. That's something to celebrate, but it's also a challenge for us as well.
So we also need to harness cultural learning and skills. When young people enter the workforce, schemes such as apprenticeships and Kickstart must be made to work for smaller organisations. Immigration visa systems must consider the unique position of heritage sector jobs being highly skilled but often low paid. And ongoing shortages in archaeology and conservation skills should be accounted for in visa schemes. What's more, the upkeep of historic buildings relies on a vast number of vulnerable skills which are at risk of extinction, including things like stained glass window making, bell founding, and flint knapping, which are all now endangered or critically endangered crafts. And while volunteers and trustees are the backbone of many heritage organisations, COVID plus the cost of living crisis have depleted the range of people that can afford to give their time to heritage. That's why the government should embed volunteering in place-based regeneration programmes.
And finally, we regularly call on the government on an ongoing basis to future-proof our national and local heritage institutions. The Arts Council, Historic England, the lottery and its transformational money are really, really fundamental for our sector to thrive. And a healthy heritage ecosystem is also really essential. The heritage sector, unlike parts of the arts sector, don't have a stable source of core funding. They have project funding. And this disparity does need dealing with. The sector support organisations and those who are supporting the bedrock of this activity are living year on year, which isn't sustainable. So we need this looked at so that the sector can thrive.
I think that's us. So thanks so much for listening. I hope you found that useful, interesting content. Our report is on the slide there. Please download by the QR code. Our comms manager, my colleague Max, is also at the back in the lovely pink shirt there, who's got some cards with the QR code on, so do grab some off him. Or we're also round the corner at stall X15. Do come and say hello. We're also running a networking session in the Ambience Networking Lounge, which I think is literally just there between 12 and 12:45 today. So please do come along. If you're interested in becoming a member of the Heritage Alliance, we'd love to speak to you. Thank you for your time. Happy to take any questions.
Okay, big hand, please, for our speakers. We do have time for questions. Can you put your hand up? I'll bring you the mic and put the mic up close. Anything from the floor?
Or any reflections, actually, as well as questions.
Anything at all? Oh, I've never had this at the first session of a M&H show. Yes, one at the back.
Yeah, thank you. Really good talk, really interesting. Thank you. I just want to stress again about making it easy for disabled people to get into all these types of buildings, ideally through the front door, accessible loos, changing places, toilets, to bring the purple pound, £260 billion a year into these organisations and buildings. That money's really well needed. And so if people can all think about disability, accessibility, really important.
Yeah, completely agree. Whole other topic, isn't it? But it also really connects, because as we broaden audiences and we bring in a range of thought, we are more creative and we're more thriving as a sector. Yeah.
Any other questions, thoughts or reflections that you'd like to ask? No?